Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Herman. I am currently the sole agriculture teacher at Indian Creek High School. I teach a variety of students from 9th through 12th grade. I have some repeat students that are in multiple classes, but most of my students are either in one course and then another course the next year, et cetera, through the agriculture sequence. When I was discussing and looking at the data on display as well as the final action plan, I decided to look at my SMAW assessment and practice scores. SMAW stands for Shielded Metal Arc Welding. It is an electric welding that is used between a hot metal arc and the electricity current that is created from the bare metal rod with the workpiece that they are actually welding on. So the students go through a process where they take notes with me. We do many activities, including a study guide. They then take the test. If they pass with an 85 or above, they are then released to the shop to begin the actual practice portion of the welding unit, where they're based on performance and participation out in the shop. Seeing as most of these students haven't done this before, I'm usually pretty lax on the performance grades. I don't necessarily grade on the weld itself, but more of the process that they take, as well as the outcome from beginning to end. I look at more of their progression rather than the actual welds that they're producing. But my problem of practice that I found was that the shielded metal arc welding or SMAW unit assessment directly correlated with the success of the student during the practice aspect of the agricultural shop. So I was finding that with a lower test score, that student also performed lower or less than others in the agriculture shop. The reason this is a problem of my practice is because when a student feels success, especially in an elective course, they will opt into continuing on that sequence. If a student does not feel success or doesn't like the hands-on practice that I'm giving them, I have a feeling that I will lose them out of my program to another elective. Being in a small rural school, this is a major issue for when I look at whether my job is going to be kept full-time or my program is going to be kept at all. So this is a huge problem of practice for me, not necessarily many others, I would assume, but I'm sure this could be an issue in art, FCS, any of those types of things where you're sharing students in a program and you want to keep your elective running. So I looked at this data. This is the data I use. This is from a Google Sheet where I have the students listed down the side as well as their absences from the unit, their note score out of 50, their study guide score out of 50, their exam score out of 100, then the practice in the shop out of 100. And I saw direct correlations between lower test scores, such as a 58, to a much lower practice in the shop score of a 20. Same here with a 78 and a 75, a 76 and a 65, a 34 and a 0. These are students that just didn't perform well while we were out there. Either they chose not to participate or they didn't participate in the best way possible that I felt like they could have. Or their progression from beginning to end was not good or didn't show any improvement. We do see from like a 95 to a 98. So we see the higher the test score, more of the success in the practice aspect, and vice versa for the lower students. This is my issue, and I don't like the way this is being portrayed. The graphs that I created figure 1 and figure 2. I have the exam scores in the blue columns as well as the practice and the shop scores in the red line. And we see the direct correlation between test score and practice score. This figure 2 basically shows the student comparison over the time. I did not include the practice in this one only because I was really showing how they got to that exam score from the notes and the study guide to that exam score. This one seems kind of skewed, the purpose being because the study guide and notes were only out of 50, where the exam was out of 100, but we can still see there the direct correlation to those 50s, where those yellow and red bars come up to the 50 line, and then those green ones excel much further than the 50. Instructional research, the one that I found most interesting and intriguing was by Kimberly O'Malley, Why Good Grades Don't Always Match Good Test Scores. She discusses the idea of competency-based learning, which I found really awesome and something that I've looked into a few times that I think could really affect these grades in this student base. She says, in competency-based learning environment, students' performance is directly tied to their mastery of a particular set of skills as opposed to various assessments and behaviors outlined above. Thus, competency-based grading only reflects the acquisition of certain knowledge and skills. And I thought this was really awesome when looking at the fact that my students are much different students than maybe how others see them in math and English. I have a lot of hands-on learners, different learners, and I found this to be a very cool, unique concept of how to determine mastery of a skill without having that be an assessment. It can be a performance-based, it can be an activity or something along those lines, which I really, really enjoy. Research and strategies, I also looked at basically what is competency education. Competency education also holds promise as districts explore new ways to expand and enrich support to students, challenging the assumption that learning takes place within the classroom. I find that in my curriculum, learning takes place everywhere, whether we are outside looking at things, whether we are in the hallways learning about communication, whether we are in the shop learning about welding or carpentry, or in the classroom doing notes and study guides. It occurs everywhere. And I think that more teachers need to understand this and accept this into their curriculums. My students are much different than others, and I think being a hands-on teacher is a direct draw for them in agriculture. Instructional strategies, I decided that I was going to try one unit in my intro to ag to implement the competency-based learning into the classroom. Concept will work well when discussing how students learn not just by notes and study guides, and not that they are important, because they obviously are, but they learn beyond those units, such as welding. In figure 2 that I showed earlier, we see the correlation to how important notes and study guides are to assessment grades. I wouldn't eliminate the uses of these, but I would integrate a hands-on activity into the unit before they get out there. Maybe I've done an activity with frosting and graham crackers where they have to physically set up welds to do those things, and it just gives them a hands-on approach. This will help my students to gain performance grades. Then we could integrate those skills into their assessment or exam grade to enhance the uniqueness and importance of the assessment to the performance in the shop upon completion. So their assessment grade would not just be paper pencil test, but it could incorporate a performance aspect that would then correlate out in the shop. So we may see those assessment to test grades vary a little bit, which is what we want. We want success in the agriculture shop. Implementation indicators. I created these based upon the teacher, the student, and the classroom. What did I want to see when I was going through this action plan? The teacher, me, I want to see an increased use of performance-based activities to the curriculum before the assessment timeframe. I want to adjust the assessment to incorporate performance aspect into overall grading of the unit exam. And I want to move throughout the classroom to remain available for questions or additional comments from students before that assessment occurs. For students, I want to see them complete the best of their ability a performance-based activity to better learn the unit information and skills. I want to see them help the instructor develop aspects of the performance-based activity that allows them to show mastery. And I want them to answer questions that display their abilities throughout the unit. As for the classroom, I want to display evidence of students' abilities of performance during the unit to increase positive attitudes. I also want to allow the arrangement of furniture to emphasize and allow for performance-based activities to occur. Right now, I have my students in pods. And for me, that really helps the performance aspect because they can interact and collaborate with each other, then give me the best possible answers. And I find this really, really works well. Evaluation for effectiveness. How am I going to know if this works? That's what I kept asking myself. And what I've come up with is that I'll be able to implement this in my unit for the 2018-2019 school year in the same Introduction to Agriculture course. Now, I won't have the same students, but I will be able to have the same unit, study guide, test, everything like that. This will allow me to test the concept of the competency-based learning, then build upon them in the future school years and other courses and curriculums where they see fit. My examples are agricultural sales, veterinary technology, and agricultural mechanics. Throughout next year's unit, 2018-2019, I will continue to monitor and collect data throughout our various units in the Introduction to Agriculture course. This will allow me to collect data for units before the competency learning assessment occurs. Then I will have direct data to correlate between the two assessments and which style worked better for that group of students. I don't want to use this year's data and then compare next year's data and have them be totally different groups of students, because we all know how differently one class can achieve versus another. I do find that if this unit assessment and performance and structural adjustments work and seem positive, I will definitely attempt to implement them into my other courses. The one I see implementing the action plan the most is that veterinary technology course in 2019-2020 school year. So I'm going to give it a year because this won't occur till second semester of next year. That then I could say, yes, this worked, or no, it did not, and go about that in the next school year, maybe trying a new course and seeing if that works. I find myself really, really interested in the competency-based learning because of what students I have and what my curriculum allows me to do. So I find that this could be a really awesome way to show success and achievement to students that maybe don't access this in math and science and English.